Well, today, prosecutors began laying out their case in one of the most high-profile trials in connection to the January 6th Capitol assault. They're asking the jury to convict 5 members of the far-right group, the Oath Keepers, who are charged with plotting an armed rebellion against the government.
WUSA 9 investigative reporter Jordan Fisher was inside the courtroom today. He joins us now. And Jordan, we've been hearing about the prosecution's evidence for some time now. What did we hear from the defense today?
Yeah, Leslie, there are 5 defendants on trial for the next 6 weeks on facing this charge of seditious conspiracy. 2 of them decided to reserve their opening statements, which makes my job here a little bit easier. Let's start with Thomas Caldwell. He's a Virginia associate of the Oath Keepers, and before this case was titled United States versus Stuart Rhodes, it was titled the United States versus Thomas Caldwell. Now, his attorney really hammered that fact during his opening remarks, accusing the government of a bait and switch, saying that they overplayed their hand in their initial charging documents of Mr. Caldwell, and saying that Caldwell is a 100% service-related disabled veteran who was simply trying to help the Oath Keepers prepare for this potential security situation. Now, let's move on to the second defendant. That's Jessica Watkins. She's an Ohio Oath Keeper who led her own version of the militia in that state. Her attorney focused on something that we haven't reported much of, which is the fact that she's a transgender woman. He said because of that, she's felt very out of place her whole life, and a lot of what she sought to do on January 6th and being part of the Oath Keepers was to find that way to fit in. Now, the third defendant, of course, is Stuart Rhodes himself, the president of the Oath Keepers, and his attorney is taking the most untested defense strategy here, saying that he believed, Stuart Rhodes that is, that former President Donald Trump was going to invoke the Insurrection Act, which is a 19th century law that allows the president in times of great emergency to activate the military, to activate the militia, i.e. the Oath Keepers, to put down threats to the government, threats to the nation. And that's something that no other defendants have tried so far, and that it's not clear that his co-defendants are really going to sign on to fully either.
Really an array of defenses here. You know,
yeah,
it's all over
that one
that.
is, that one is kind of saying, well, we were going to be ready in case the president told us to be ready.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's an unusual defense. It's an untested defense, and it's something that the judge has warned could potentially open them up to admitting criminal acts for some of the other charges that they face.
So we've seen several of these jury trials play out before. So what's at stake here?
Well, for the defendants, what's at stake is significant prison sentences, potentially. The longest sentence so far to date, 10 years in prison, and that's for obstruction of an official proceeding, which most, if not all, of these defendants face. They, of course, have the additional seditious conspiracy charge on top of that, and that's what the government is really looking to prove. The government does not have a great track record of winning seditious conspiracy cases. In fact, the last time defendants were charged, it was a Christian militia in Michigan in 2010, a judge dismissed the charges, saying prosecutors hadn't made their case, didn't bring enough evidence. And this group is not the only group facing seditious conspiracy charges in January 6th. Later in November, the other 4 defendants in this case go on trial, and in December, 5 members of the Proud Boys will also begin trial on this charge. So a lot for the government to prove here.
Sounds like you're telegraphing what's getting ready to happen as this goes forward, right?
Absolutely. We have 6 weeks is what we're expecting, if not 7, of testimony. Now that's going to include 6 potentially other members of the Oath Keepers who have already pleaded guilty, including some who have pleaded guilty to that seditious conspiracy charge, who as part of that plea deal have agreed to say that they brought weapons to Virginia, as we've reported many times in the past, for the explicit purpose of disrupting this joint session of Congress, that they heard Stuart Rhodes trying to reach out to President Trump, that they heard Stuart Rhodes saying that he wanted civil war, that he wanted a bloody revolution. You can see on your screen right now some of the quotes that we saw today in court. He told other Oath Keepers that there would be a bloody and desperate fight if Joe Biden was certified as president. He said, we're going to have to fight. It can't be avoided. He said there's no way we're getting through this without a civil war. All of that we expect the prosecution to hammer repeatedly to counter that defense that Rhodes and his attorney are expected to bring, which is that, again, as I said, he thought, former President Trump was going to call them up.
Yeah. Okay. That didn't happen.
That did not happen. That did not happen, and that's the crux of the case.
It's interesting to see Stuart Rhodes is sort of calling the shots, but doesn't have a whole lot of skin in the game. So, we'll have to see what happens here with all of that. Listen, if you want to see more of Jordan's reporting, and it is exquisite, on the Capitol riot cases, subscribe to our Capitol Breach newspaper, or newsletter, I should say. Just point your phone's camera at the QR code to sign up, and we will email you updates every week and when news breaks.